However you feel about these guys, they are definitely changing the retirement plan industry one beer at a time.
And this is where you applaud.
Put your hands together for Retireholics.
Boo. Thank you, Scott. Boo. Thank you, Scott. Look at the audience. They're all over here in the corner.
Quickest way to the bar.
Yeah. So come on over here. Yeah. There's not a splash zone or anything like that.
There might be.
I asked for one, but we said no so far.
Live from the Western Pension and Benefits Council Spring Conference here in Portland, Oregon. Thanks for having us, guys. I didn't think you'd ask us back.
No.
Last year, if you were here, you saw it. If you weren't, I'll describe it for you. We like to do a quiz of death thing, and Chad usually loses the game, and
I lose every time. There's never been a time in which I won.
We try to hurt him in some way or inflict pain.
Emotionally.
We were running out of ideas, and we're here in Portland, and we decided, let's fill up a shot glass of the hottest hot sauce we could find and make him, drink it. He did this, and we did reach the limit for Retireholics because we know where our line is.
I really hope that's not our limit.
You want to go past that?
I'd like to get banned from a couple of these
He
things.
almost threw up on the stage, almost threw up on the audience, and I personally like to push the envelope, but I just don't think that would have been a good thing. Was it, Rob?
It was bad.
You have to make two very clarifying statements. One, he prepped with Pepto-Bismol, so
I
it would have
coated
been
my stomach.
Gnarly as far as color. Secondarily, that night, and I want to tell everybody here, the person Chad Johansson really is, he did that and almost suffered the consequences, and we go have dinner to celebrate. We had a great time out here. He ordered the habanero shrimp platter. Does that make any sense?
You just pile it on once you go down that tunnel.
Have,
Let's just say the next 48 hours were rough.
That's the limit. Yeah.
So buckle up. This could go really bad. And we may not be back next year, so, soak it up.
But we'll take Jason down with us, so it's going to be worth it.
Our guest, who we're very excited to have on the show, by the way, super cool, big-time national ERISA attorney, Jason Roberts. Get your butt up here. Get in the chair.
Welcome, sir.
Your career is plummeting right now.
Hey, this couch has been sat on by some very famous people in this industry, so we're just adding to it with you here.
You're the most famous.
I noticed somebody bust my water, too, so I guess that's not allowed.
You're the most famous person we've ever had, and I want to say personally, it's like a dream to have you on the show because you're my favorite ERISA attorney. You're an icon. You're a legend. And honestly, when I first met you, I was fired up. Because I met you, probably don't even remember. We met in
There's
Tahoe.
no way he remembers you.
Yeah, right. Well, maybe. And you mentioned to me, ERISA attorney guy, I knew who you were. You were speaking there, and you said that you were into, it was either windsurfing or kiteboarding at the time. And so I've been surfing my whole life, and I was like, oh man, this is so cool.
ERISA attorney, that's serious.
See,
I met him, and I learned that he lives on a boat, or a yacht, perhaps. I don't know, but I'm like, this is the coolest ERISA attorney around.
Not any longer.
It's not a yacht. It's a boat.
I'm going to go with yacht. I never saw it, so I'm just going to go with yacht. That's what I see it as.
I actually thought that was kind of creepy when I heard that. It's kind of like Van down by the river. He was living in the boat. But I do know that he has moved from the boat to a house, and so now you go back and forth, right?
Exactly. In 2014.
Yeah, it's been a while. Dang, I've been around here too long.
We don't know these things.
I remember after we first met, then you called me shortly after that with a referral. Thank you. And you said, hey, this is JD. Before you even said JD, I knew who it was. And you said, I'm that long-haired surfer dude, TPA. You remember me?
That's a fair description. Like every show, Jason, we have to have the beer of the episode, okay? And our hosts here at the Oregon Convention Center were so cool, they decided to bring us an assorted allotment of whatever they had at their bar. So that's great. But no, we're psyched.
Yeah, we got to pick. We got to pick here.
So go ahead and grab the beer. I think we give you a choice.
We're not going to describe them.
Yours is down there,
Just pick
buddy.
them up at your local supermarket.
I have a Full Sail Amber, which I'm fairly excited about.
That's great.
It's not a
Bring
beer
it in
I've
for a
had.
cheers. Beer of the episode. Retireholics. live from Portland.
So
and,
far away from everybody.
Jason, there's another something we like to do on the show. It's this lighted up screen here in the front. We call it the word of the episode. It's been renamed because your buddy Fred Reish decided to call it the prohibitive word of the episode. We thought that was so cute.
Still not
Coming
sure
from
what
the
that
old
means.
ERISA attorney, he kept saying, what's the prohibitive word? What's the prohibitive word? So that's what we call it now. But I'm going to give you a choice. You can choose the prohibitive word of the episode. And how this goes, audience, if any one of us say that word during this 70-minute show, buckle up,
Oh.
longest show we've ever done in the
We
history of the world.
apologize in advance.
Can't be that much worse than a panel on ESG. No, sorry. So if any of us say that word, we have to take you don't have to drink the whole thing, Jason. Please don't.
Or you can.
You just
if
take a
want.
little comfortable sip from the hard alcohol that we have here.
What do
on
we
the
have
stage.
today, JD?
It's a Smirnoff. I know how you like Smirnoff, and it's high-end
It's
vodka.
been some time since I've had lime Smirnoff.
You got the orange
and
over
I'm
there.
excited about it.
We've got the lime over here. So your choice, Jason,
Well,
is either fiduciary or regulation. And before you answer, I want you to know that we've listened to you on podcasts.
We did our prepping for tomorrow's show with Jason Roberts, and we wanted to figure out what the great word of the episode would be. So we're trying to ruin him by finding what words he likes to say a lot.
Ones out there.
He has a real liking for regulation, so that's
I
kind
don't
of
understand half the things he's saying.
He has said fiduciary a couple times.
I still don't doesn't still.
We did our
Religiously.
We've
research,
studied you.
and you say both of these words a lot.
I will choose regulation.
Choose regulation. So the word of the episode will be fiduciary. That's what we're going to go with. And we're going to talk about
Yeah,
three...
you don't make the rules on this show, buddy.
No.
You might do that in your regular role, but not here.
I say to Jason, hey, you're going to be on the show. What do you want to talk about? And he says, I'm thinking of all these exciting things we can talk about. And the ERISA attorney says, I want to talk about fiduciary governance.
It's
I mean,
fantastic, huh?
bore, snore, why are we going to do that? But then he says to me in the email, because I say, I want to talk about financial wellness and these other things. And he goes, why do you want to talk about these bells and whistles?
forgot
Or
to do
he said enhancements, when the most important thing is what?
Plan governance.
Land governance. You're basically saying to me, and I'm going to give you the mic now to kind of set us up or set the table, that's great, financial wellness, retirement readiness, all these kind of tools, that's fine and dandy, but you first got to make sure that your home's in order, things are good, and that you're not, facing some type of massive liability or something like that, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I was just pushing back a little bit on maybe taking Mark's side in terms of financial wellness. Not necessarily that it's a buzzword, but I do think it's difficult to achieve without...
I'm going to retire tomorrow.
difficult to achieve without buy-in from the plan sponsor. Not only buy-in to implement it, but also buy-in to drive utilization. And if we just look at basic sort of human behavior, it's shelter and protection before you get to self-actualization, let alone self-actualization for your other participants, right? So if I'm that HR manager, or if I'm that CFO, or a committee member, also known as a person who makes discretionary decisions on behalf of the plan.
It's going to be tough. He'll slip at some
I
point.
just learned the definition.
I swore he was going to.
Then if I'm the advisor and I have to convince that plan sponsor to add something, if they're up to their eyeballs in worrying about what they're missing with their own plan, and we continually see there's a great survey that comes out every other year. It used to be the Towers-Watson, now it's the Willis Towers-Watson, but it's the Plan Governance Survey. And what it asks, a few questions, and the plans are all across the boards in terms of size. Basically, what keeps you up at night? And plan sponsors repeatedly put regulatory complexity, other F-word decisions that need to be made in the top three. And so I've never seen one that says,
Financial
I'm
wellness.
worried that my participants don't have access to tools to help them be better savers. So again, I'm not downplaying it. I think it's a great feature, and it is the rewarding part of being in this industry is seeing people retire on time and with
And it's not like you're
dignity and so-
biased. It's not like you're an ERISA attorney or anything.
But again, I feel like putting myself as a plan sponsor, I want to make sure our house is in order, that we've done everything we can, and then we look at, okay, how can we enhance the experience for the individual?
Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. So build that out for us. So what are they concerned about? What do they need to look at? What's the current landscape for us?
I thought you would never ask.
Yeah, we derailed that as long as we could.
I think it's
for
time
you.
for you to get to your flight. I don't know.
So the way we look at it, and just trying different methods over the years, probably 8 or 9 years ago, came up with a 3-bucket approach. And in fact, I was sitting in a prospective client's office trying to kind of have them be a redistributor of PRI services. So they were an aggregator of sorts, and we were looking to connect with their RIAs. And this guy wasn't having any of it. He's the chief risk officer. He is the essentially general counsel. And I thought, okay, well, I've flown 4 hours to get here. I can tell this is a wall. So tell me a little bit about your own plan. I said, oh, well, we're a well-intended but overworked committee. And he goes on and on and on. And so, long story short, he had a fiduciary file that was probably...
Boom! He slipped.
Boom.
I knew it would happen.
Thank you.
Oh, you're gonna love that.
It's all downhill from here, Jason.
Oh, goodness. So he has this big file of this binder that they're using to manage the plan. And I asked him, do you have an advisor or consultant? And basically said, we're at ABC Financial. We don't need an advisor. We have 3 CFAs on the committee, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So what I figured out in pretty short order is they were scoring the daylights out of their 10, 15, 20 plain vanilla 401k funds. They had these CFAs just running all kinds of different metrics on these funds. They weren't doing anything in the other areas of plan governance. Yeah. And so what I did for him, and what we've now adopted for practice management tools for advisors, and even in our law firm, where we're working with plan sponsors, we use these to educate them on how to think more holistically about managing their plan. And again, it's all at the plan level, so we're not getting into participant level services at this point. We look at 3 buckets of risk, and all F-word functions come out of one of these 3 buckets, right? So committee members are held to that F standard because they're making decisions.
Oh, fiduciary, just say the damn word once in a while.
I think perhaps it's because you're not holding your beer in your hand.
Oh, my God.
And maybe that's...
Go on,
that's
sorry to interrupt you.
associated with
3
the-
buckets, we got it. Keep
So
going.
that's where they're making decisions. They're exercising discretion. That's where they're getting their status. And what we've decided is they all emanate out of one of 3 buckets. First bucket is obviously investments. Almost all plan sponsors know that they have a ultra-high duty of care for when it comes to selecting and monitoring investments, and they have a process. How many times have you told your clients it's all about a process? You don't have to be perfect, you have to be prudent, and this is really tripping me up, not being able to say the F word.
I hate to say it, but you're doing great.
So
You
they
don't
have a
sound
process.
so
They have
smart,
investment
Will.
policy statements, right? I have probably 9 out of 10 plans we look at have them.
They have scoring
They're not
tools.
perfect.
They've
There's-
got their stuff. Yeah.
We can poke some holes in QDIA selection in particular, and so forth, but they have it. They have a process. Well, the other bucket is service providers. Another bucket is service providers.
Monitoring, reviewing, picking, selecting.
Prudently selecting and monitoring your service providers, which I would submit is where 9/10 of the large market litigation comes from, right?
Wow.
It looks like it's coming from investments, but at the end of the day, you strip it back, it's share class. Who's getting paid how much? From what source? Was it a legitimate plan expense? Is there any
Sure, that's
sort
the
of
service
subsidies to
providers.
the company? Are they self-dealing, et cetera? And was it reasonable? Was somebody monitoring to make sure it was reasonable in light of the value being provided? So that's another bucket. I would say fairly acute, right? When you're looking at risk reward of how much time do we spend in these various areas, when's the last time you saw somebody getting sued over investment performance? Or the DOL
It's not a
challenging
thing.
investment?
It's always share class. It's always fee structure.
So, not to take away from investments, but there's great solutions out there. They're very scalable, at least from an advisor's perspective. You can run a report, red, yellow, green, and obviously not to take anything away from advisors who really get in the weeds on that, but to get a plan sponsor over that hump, it's pretty feasible. Service provider selection monitoring, if you think about it, you don't have to spend a ton of time on it. You do it up front, and if there are no changes, you're monitoring the services, you're monitoring satisfaction, you're monitoring utilization, you're monitoring the fees coming out to pay for those services coming out of the plan, but you're not going through full-blown RFPs or benchmarks every year, certainly not every quarter.
You're just trying to document that you're keeping your finger on the pulse. And
Sure. About every 3 years is a bigger undertaking.
Which is fair, I think.
But it's not super easy, because unlike funds that we have all these things, standard deviation, 3 or 5 year, 10 year, like it's a little more opaque.
Oh, for sure. It's
right?
more qualitative, for sure. But I guess what I was saying is it's not easy. It's just not as frequent.
Yeah, right.
So as far as being a drag on time, and again, time freeing up to turn to things like let's enhance the participant experience. Right, so if I'm up to my eyeballs and there's no more time into my committee meeting with the, maybe 5 precious hours I have annually with my advisor, if I'm lucky, who's driving that conversation. If I'm
Yeah, you
focused
almost
on
went
all
there.
of these boardroom governance issues, then I don't get down to the other ones.
Yep.
So 3 buckets: investments, service providers. The third bucket is administration/reporting.
Oh, beer is the third bucket?
Isn't that what would be in the third
I
bucket?
thought I
Third
said
bucket,
something, I
beer.
had to drink a beer.
Beer goes
So
in the
that
bucket.
third bucket, and so this is right up your guys' alley, administration
Right.
reporting. That's the one
The
that
sexy
you have
stuff.
to be constantly monitoring, double checking, making sure that people know their roles, they know what's in the plan document, somebody's communicating that out of the boardroom with
It
the
might not
committee.
be where a ton of litigation is, but it's definitely where all the screw-ups are, right?
And the IRS and DOL, that's exactly where they spend most of their time, is in that channel.
Well, I think you'd say litigation would be investment, and specifically in compliance administration reporting, it tends to not be litigation, but it tends to be going through compliance programs to fix errors that have been made. It's not necessarily
Listening
litigation.
to the dude, he said litigation happens in the service provider because he doesn't
And
share
investment.
classes and everything he puts in the service
I
provider
put that in
bucket, not the
service
investment.
providers.
I love
Because
it
if
when
you're
I
looking
can
at
make
shared
Chad
class
wrong.
and you're looking at revenue sharing, you're looking at who's getting paid how much and for what.
Yeah.
Right? And again, side note, the NYU case I thought was very refreshing. We don't get to see a lot of long opinions, particularly in the 403B cases. But that judge went out of her way to really hammer home. It's about value. Fees in a vacuum are meaningless. It's about the value being provided in alignment with the needs of the plan and its participants. So that's just kind of a sidebar.
Cool. Stick with your third bucket.
Okay, third bucket, administration and reporting. So when we show all this to a plan sponsor, and this was back to my story of sitting with this gentleman that was on the committee, I was connecting all those dots through an advisor or a consultant. So for the TPAs in here, I'm sure you're like a lot of our TPAs, they tell me, Jason, we have 2 types of advisors. Those who get it and are doing those boardroom things, and then everybody else who's going in and enrolling and educating participants, and that's about where their knowledge ends. And so for those TPAs, we've actually helped them build in the boardroom consulting services that they can charge an additional fee for. So, not stepping on advisors' toes, but giving the advisor the option. Do you want to do it, or are we going to do it? Because if nobody does it, plan sponsor's not going to figure it out on their own.
Are we calling that a form of 316 or something?
No, it doesn't have to be
just getting
discretionary.
into just education,
It can be the things that a
helping.
traditional advisor would do. Or no, I shouldn't say traditional.
That's
It's a
news to
higher
me.
touch advisor, retirement plan specialist advisor, where they're helping them organize the committee. Who should be on this committee? That's a building block from which everything else is going to either grow or struggle.
Sorry, Jason, I'm
And-
thinking of new business models for my firm that I never thought of before that you just brought up. Is there any other TPAs here? Raise your hand. Yeah, buddy. We're the cool kids, these guys. Oh,
Or the
go on.
nerds.
Go on. So where are the problems happening in that area? I mean, I'm sure you get asked that all the time.
In administration.
Third bucket, yeah.
Third bucket. So when we have all these materials that are designed so you can take them and give them to plan sponsors and show them these concepts. One of them is a sample fiduciary file.
Mark,
In
maybe
this-
fill him up. He's going to need some more.
In this file,
I'll just give him mine. I haven't said it.
Okay.
So I don't know what it means.
we represent the 3 buckets, but we had to expand that middle one. the administration reporting, because there's so much that needs to be in the file that relates to administration reporting. So it's this super wide section. Everything else is had to condense. And to answer your question, the number one thing we've seen over the last year, I think hands down, would be definition of compensation.
Oh, sure.
And auditors, a lot of times it's a first-time audit for a plan, and the auditor discovers, well, you said that participants could defer on bonus, but you didn't.
Bonuses, gift cards, on-spot cash bonuses, all kinds of weird stuff, right?
So we get a lot of correction work on that issue. Others are sort of various and sundry. There's no common thread right now.
I heard you talk on other shows about like terminated participants with a balance, which maybe doesn't sound that exciting, but it kind of caught my attention because of all the hundreds of clients that we have. I'm always concerned that the plan sponsors are not treating these terminated participants with benefits the way that they should, with notices and requirements. And I know you have some thoughts on
RMDs.
that.
Yeah.
RMDs tripped me
that's a
out.
tough
When you
one.
said that, I was like, oh yeah, shoot.
So that's an interesting one because the DOL over the last few years started enforcing that more aggressively. At least when I say that, meaning the duty to track down these participants who have benefits owed to them. And it didn't really square with the rules, I guess, is a short way of saying it. So whether they could successfully levy a fine based upon that is to me a little bit uncertain.
Bless
But
you.
who wants to pick a fight with the DOL, right? So whether you can win or not, most people just want to get in and get out of that investigation. By the way, they do not like to be called auditors. Auditors are the IRS
investigators.
agents.
Oops.
DOL are federal investigators.
And usually some pretty charismatic people.
And one of the best ways to get in and out is, for example, we have clients that will organize their F file in a way that is 3 file folders, whether it's online or in binders, and they are following a lot of the plan governance process, which, by the way, don't use checklists because invariably the investigators or auditors will see a checklist in which shows the exact process that should be used, except nobody bothered to ever go back to it after the first time they checked it.
Yeah.
So then you're in this position, which I should have prefaced, I'm a former litigator, defense lawyer for advisors, and what I always hated seeing was somebody walks into the arbitration or into the courtroom and says, here's your written supervisory procedures, here's your process, here's what you did. These two don't match. It's almost worse than not having the process when somebody can see, well, you had the answer right there, you just didn't bother to follow your own process. So we use open-ended questions with plan sponsors, very targeted open-ended questions to drive a conversation, some debate, hopefully some information gathering, and then ultimately they document the basis for their well-informed decision. So if they organize it well, then let's say they forget a question. Nobody knows. There's not a glaring checkbox without a check mark in it.
Don't paint yourself into a corner.
And a lot of times there's 2 different tracks for investigators. One is the red flag track, and the other is the routine. So if a participant calls and says, I asked for the summary plan description, I didn't get it. Well, because I asked Joe in HR, Joe's not on the committee, Joe doesn't know the first thing about ERISA, just thought I was being nosy and told me it was none of my business. So even having a good chain of command in terms of letting participants know who to ask questions to about the plan, but if that's the basis upon which an investigator comes in, they already have a red flag. They're going to get more points towards promotion within the organization if they settle that one and get a fine. If it's just a routine and they open up the file and everything appears to be well organized, it didn't ask for a lot of extensions on the document production, they're probably going to say, nothing to see here, let me get my 2 or 3 points, rather than sending it over to red flag and getting 10 or 15, or criminal and getting 50 points. And so that's one way to
See,
really
this point
expedite.
system is a discussion in itself. I'm interested in that. So you're saying these investigators have a point system for promotion within the DOL?
Well, they have to. At one point, we were interviewing recently retired DOL investigators just to ask them questions like, what are you really doing on rollovers? A lot of the A lot of my counterparts out there would have you believe that DOL's out there rigorously enforcing IRA rollovers from retirement plan advisors, and I've never seen a single case. By the time you see rollover abuse, FINRA and the SEC are already in there. I've never seen the DOL say, well, you are a fiduciary.
Hey!
He did say you
Mark's got
needed to
you.
pour him a little bit more in there.
Mark, you got him because he's empty.
No.
I don't think that
Oh, he's doing
qualifies.
another song. He's good. He's good.
Oh my gosh.
I'll let him slide.
Jason, I do want to make sure you get to your flight. So I want to, before you leave, I want to pick your brain on target date funds, because I've heard you speak on that, and specifically to QDIAs. So talk about the different, what we all thought were great QDIAs and the pros and cons of each of these and what you're seeing in the industry.
I can't believe I got 3.
You'll have
that's
4.
two.
I thought you were gonna have
I think the over-under was like
prepared for this,
12.
but
When you asked me to designate the prohibitive word, I said wellness, and then anyway.
Do you think regulation would have been worse? I don't think so.
I wish we could go back in time and find out.
Participant. We always say participant's the best word.
So the nutshell version of where I think there could be significant exposure for plan sponsors and advisors, particularly advisors in a 338 capacity, because the buck stops with them, is failure to account for the DOL's 2013 tips. And the tips are, you can Google it, DOL tips for ERISA plan fiduciaries. It talks about
Told you were getting 4.
Fill him up, bro.
Told you were getting 4.
Mark,
How are they going to find
got the orange one. It's good, man.
he's good. I'm starting to get happy.
Mark,
here.
you're
It's starting to work
confident
out.
that you're not going to touch that orange.
I am
Anyway,
the most
the
confident
DOL
I've ever
wrote
been.
it.
Just in case
So-
you get frisky.
There's this guidance out there that says, here's what we, the DOL, believe to be relevant when it comes to selecting target date funds. And those are the most common QDIAs for a lot of reasons. So nothing wrong with that at all. But the issue is when you are in a courtroom and you're defending a fiduciary breach claim that's based upon...
So we're at 5 now. I said 7 was the over.
I knew it was going to turn around eventually. It always does.
When you're defending a claim for
luck
that,
driving your boat
for
later.
failing to act prudently, what the judge asks, or what the standard is going to be whether you considered relevant information or that which you should have known to be relevant in order to arrive at a well-informed decision. Here's the DOL, the primary regulator of F-word conduct,
Good.
telling you what they believe to be relevant. So if we have another, let's say I'm in a aggressively managed through glide path in a target date fund. And the data, the DOL says one of the things you should look at is withdrawal patterns. So let's say in this plan, 95% of participants roll out at or shortly after the retirement date. Logically, that would say they probably shouldn't have a lot of equity exposure at that crucial date because that money is going to be liquidated and they might sell, obviously, at the bottom. Nothing wrong with a managed through glide path because we could all defend the fact that they need growth during retirement. People are living longer, et cetera. Problem is, the tips say one thing and the data says you should be looking at this unless there was an aggressive information campaign designed to tell participants, hey, we think you need growth during retirement. These default investments are not designed to be liquidated when you retire. Even then, because it's a QDIA, I think just my gut tells me we're going to look at these participants as not exercising a lot of judgment or input, right? They're defaulted for a reason. So long story short, QDIA protection is bulletproof to the extent the QDIA was prudently selected and
So
periodically monitored.
if
And that's the part I think is missing when it comes to a lot of plans. And since 2013, that guidance has been out there.
You think in the summary of that is you're like, oh, well, a TDF is a QDIA. Sorry for the acronym combo there, but so I'm good. Not necessarily true.
That was true when the regs came out.
Right.
So PPA of 06 and then 07 implementing regs, it just said if it's a TDF, it works. If it's a managed account, it works.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it says it has to be a mix of equity and fixed income exposure. So you can't
Balance
be 100-0.
fund, balance fund.
The third one was a balanced fund. or the risk-based approach, and that one actually had suitability language in the reg, and it said if you choose this option, the fiduciary must determine that
6.
that allocation is.
Open your papers tomorrow. It's gonna be like, ERISA attorney Jason Roberts kicked off airplane. Couldn't fly to-
I want to tie real quickly from selecting of providers and QDIA selection, because I feel like those two in the market that we often are spending time in, which would be sub 10 million in terms of asset size of a plan, the QDIA and the target date suite are simply chosen by the provider that they're choosing, and often there is a provider selection process, but very seldom are they spending time getting into the QDIA selection process, the TDFs, more often than not in that space.
In the micro market.
In the micro market. And often it's a proprietary fund, which I have no problem with. We've had that episode. I have no problem with it being proprietary so long as it's meeting the criteria and it's a good investment. But I have to imagine as a litigator, you see that as an issue.
I don't litigate anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, as an ex-litigator, you see that as an issue.
You can't
Help
handle
my
the
clients
truth.
avoid litigation. I think the DOL would say there, because another one of their tips was to consider custom or non-proprietary alternatives. And
In the 2013
and again,
gig.
this is all worst case scenario. This is, let's say we have a correction that that the glide path I'm talking about, people lost what they did in 08, 30%.
There's no wood
upwards
for
of
me to
30%.
knock on, Jason. I can't go.
So in that scenario, if participants sued, I think what the DOL would say, well, if it was a take it or leave it option, and if you had followed our tips, you should have changed record keepers.
Wow.
I know
Well,
it's extreme, and
we're
I
gonna-
know a lot of people will probably take issue with that, but if you read those tips, they're not only saying, here's all the things you should be evaluating, but they're also saying, compare asset management to asset management and compare record keeping to record keeping. Just because you get a better deal on record keeping using the proprietary option, that's great if it's kind of like in the ESG conversation today, if it's a tiebreaker, right? Then take the...
Something
take
you
the-
can't. Something
It
you
needs
can't
to be
do.
prudent.
Yeah, but I
And most
rarely
have
see a
multiple
single
options.
TDF option. It's
Yeah,
usually
most
the
have multiple
pricing is
options.
better if you include the proprietary.
Right.
And a lot of times you can justify the proprietary, so I too don't have
And
a
you can
problem with
screen
that.
them and they look fantastic,
But-
and then
but
it's
they
a
just need to
prudent
be
decision.
looked
so
at,
fit
and you
that
need to have
process.
that as part of the IPS when it comes to QDIA and specifically.
You rarely see one option these days. You used to, but the fact of the matter is, when they bring in 100 plans, 93 of those plans have that option, and we know that's not through their prudent process and selection. But we didn't get stuck
Because
on
it's
that.
cheaper, right?
Right.
Maybe, or they just don't care. They're just going with what they're told to go with, which is worse in a sense. Obviously, it's worse.
I think most record keeper partners are good at putting both options out, and they are choosing it because it's cheaper, yes.
I want to ask you about other things. I want to keep you around for our fee thing, but I also want to see your name on the headlines tomorrow. So I know you got to get to your flight. So we're going to give you your what's it called?
Theater time.
No, the
Hard
hard
stop.
stop.
Send
Thank
off.
you. So get out of here. Get the hell out of here. Give him a round of applause.
You survived. Only 6. I had 7 on the over.
Take the beer with you. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. I thought
Everybody
he was
else is going to leave too
just
now, by the way.
to remind, yeah, everyone leaves. They're like, we're out of here. Jason's done. Let's get out of here. Just so I told you a little bit earlier, but we literally last night were listening to him on a podcast, and we're like, hey, what should the prohibitive word be? You know, the episode. So we listen, and Chad's like, fiduciary, fiduciary, regulation.
We're still in the middle of a show here, by the way.
Oh shit! I stepped right into that one. Wow.
I had 7 in 3 sentences when we were adding them up last night
And
on
so
that
we
podcast.
thought he would be toast. Like, I was going, oh my God, he's going to be hammered by the end of the show.
I had somebody else text me today when they found out kind of what we were doing and said if someone says F word, that it should be 2 shots. Once they knew what word we were going to use as the word of the episode. I'm like, that would have been interesting.
I might look like an alcoholic and like, I'm not a fan of this kind of stuff.
You just look...
Like Bud Light, Coors Light, not vodka. Let's move on to the next subject.
Well, we're still going here?
Yeah, we got.
Again,
dude,
sorry.
They booked us.
Welcome
they wanted
back
us
to
for
your normal
70
seat,
minutes. We get paid by the minute.
I don't feel worthy of this chair.
We got a little bit more time. We're on perfect schedule. I like to call this section of our show kind of awkward business moments. And I want you to kick us off with one that you get frustrated about all the time.
It makes me so angry.
What makes you angry?
When there
Chad?
is a reply, or even if it's an initial email with no signature. There's no email address, there's no phone number to call you back at, there's nothing below there. I get furious at that. I have another one that goes along with that I got today, which is when the signature is a picture. I can't click on the phone number to call you from my phone. I can't click on the
whole
email.
thing's an image.
It's a whole thing is an image. It's not an active link.
What Chad is
Makes me
saying
so angry.
is that sometimes in the course of his busy business day, I feel like I should turn my chairs to you guys. Hey, Bonnie. I just had a couple shots. I'm getting loose. What Chad is saying, he's in the middle of his
There's literally
business day.
nobody in the middle. This is actually really funny.
He's in the middle of his business day, and he's like, "Oh, I gotta call, Tom, the advisor." And he doesn't have Tom's contact on his phone, so he goes, "Well, let me go to my Outlook. I'll find the last email, and I'll call
we
him."
supposed to
And
be
he's scrolling, going,
utilizing Salesforce?
"Where's your signature? You son of a!" And he can't find it, or it's no. So
It's always a response. It's like, you'll just have the name at the bottom, and then it will say, sent from my iPhone. Like, put your signature on your iPhone then. It's that simple. There
No,
needs
it's
to
really
be
not that
access
simple,
to find
but,
you
yeah.
each time.
All right, here's mine, and I hope some of you can relate to this. These days, we have a lot of these online meetings, right? So you get the link to the meeting. It's basically a modern day conference call, and below that is your 5-digit or 6-digit password or code to get in, or whatever you want to call it. Well, when I have those on my calendar, they usually come up on me pretty quick. Oh, geez, it's in 5 minutes. Got to be on that thing. I'm usually using my phone. Maybe I'm out and about, and
On your surfboard.
So I click on the link to join the Zoom meeting, the GoToMeeting, the whatever, and it calls. I click on the 800 number to call in, and then it says, "Hey, welcome to whatever online meetings. Please enter your 6-digit code." I'm on the phone and I hit the hat, the numeric thing. So now I got to go back to my email to find the code.
Yeah, you got to double click and then go.
And here's my problem.
Back front.
I can't remember 5 numbers.
No.
You're a TPA.
So I go back and I'm like, 4, 5. Shit. I go back to it and I'm like, okay, 5, 7. I go back, 7, and it goes, please enter, starts over, and I'm like, dang it! So what I end up doing now is I take this beautiful tag, and I know now, I write down the 6-digit code on a piece of paper. People are nodding their head. I put it aside.
Almost all of them have a one-button iPhone Android push that will do all of that for you. It puts a asterisk in between, and then we'll put in the code right
beautiful
after.
thing.
Look at all of our Zoom meetings that I send you. It has the same
Okay,
thing.
here's the deal, Chad.
See, I may not know social media, but I'm at least tech savvy there.
I was just going to say, I will trade you Instagram coaching, and you help me
There we
out
go.
with these
That's
online
fair.
meetings, because I suck at that.
It also helps if you're like a little bit earlier than
prepared.
after the meeting starts and you're freaking out and you're in your car or on the beach. If you have time, then you don't have to worry about that. Being prompt, dude.
I've talked about this one before, but I'm going to bring it up again. And I don't know if this is a...
I didn't know we were doing this, so I didn't even have time to prep anything, by the way.
I don't like it when he goes rogue. It makes me
I love it, but I'm
got
like, what do
hives
I?
right now.
What's going on right now?
I don't know if this is a male or a female thing or both, but for me, this happens all the time. I have to go to a client meeting, advisor meeting, whatever. I'm in the car for 30 minutes, an hour, hour and a half. I get there and it's like, here we go. Nice time for an inspirational meeting, meet someone, this new prospect, this new whatever. And 100% of the time, the first words out of my mouth to the receptionist or whomever is, where's the bathroom? Can I use the bathroom? Because does that happen to everybody or just me? No.
Most of us drink coffee all day.
Like you're crushing Coors Lights all day. Yeah, it's going to happen a lot.
When you drink 4 Coors Lights on the way to the meeting. The worst thing happened to me is the meeting was coming and I took a pee in the parking lot and the guy's looking down and no. Never happened.
Yeah, we're not coming back.
All right, so we're here. You made it. You made it to the end. We're gonna wrap this sucker for you right now. And
I'm not gonna drink any hot sauce, and I'm not gonna die on stage.
it's time for
Have one more
quiz
beer
of
while we're
death.
at it.
Are y'all ready for quiz of death?
No.
No, there's no quiz of
Okay,
death.
thank God.
That was
So
their
you've gone
one.
rogue
That was
twice.
their one request. The committee, they can't do that again, so we're not doing that. It was great to be here at the conference. We are the Retireholics. We're changing the retirement plan industry, one assorted beer at a time. Little shots. Good to Jason Roberts. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Still full.
Still full.
Drink it.
Now drink it.
Okay.